as we look at the millennial buyer and dealerships need to change processes in their stores, it's really a challenge from a dealership perspective. Dealers historically are not really super open to change. It's tough for them. They look at it and go, well, it's not broken, why should I fix it? But it's definitely something that they need to look at. Auto Trader recently had a study that showed that 17 out of 4,002 car buyers like the current car buying process. So it's not just millennials that don't like it, it's most consumers. What's interesting is the millennials, I think, are pushing the need for change at the dealership because the millennials, frankly, aren't putting up with it. And so dealers are being forced to make adjustments. So most dealers, I don't think, have made a lot of changes yet, frankly. But there's quite a few that we work with today that are trying to figure out, okay, how do we make these changes? And what we're recommending to our dealers is that you want to make your website more like Amazon and make your showroom more like Apple. And this is how you're going to start to reach the millennial, and frankly, the millennials are going to influence the older generation too. We've seen that all the time. Remember when Facebook was just for teenagers, just for college age students really, right? And now today, I think my mom uses Facebook more than I do. So online checkout really resonates with millennials because they are so used to buying things in a fast, easy, convenient, transparent manner. Everything else that they buy online, they do it on their phone most of the time, and it's super easy. And so then they go to buy a car and they're like, wait a second, what is going on here? And our CEO, Aaron Crane, our company was founded on this. He went to a BMW dealership to see if his surfboard would fit into the vehicle that he wanted, left, went home. That night he's like, yeah, that's the car I want. Let me go on the dealership website and buy it. He couldn't understand. Why can't I buy the car? Like, I don't understand. I'm offering you money. I want your product. What's the problem here? Right? So millennials specifically, they have an expectation of fast, transparent, and easy. And so in their minds, why can't I have that when I go to buy a car? One interesting point on that as well, one of our clients, Tony Rhodes from Gun Automotive, I heard him share this yesterday at our lunch and learn that we had. He pointed out that consumers compare their car buying experience or any other experience with the best experience that they've had. So they're going to compare their Amazon checkout experience, right, or their Apple store experience. That's what they're going to compare. They're not going to be like, oh, well, let me find somewhere in between. Right? So they're comparing us as car dealers to the best experiences that they're having. And we're failing on that front. So we've been talking a lot about the fact that consumers are much more likely to upsell themselves than they are to be sold. And it goes back to the old saying, I mean, we've all heard it a million times, that nobody wants to be sold, but everyone wants to buy. And specifically when we start talking about F&I and F&I products and upgrades on the back end of a car deal, think about a typical consumer that just said yes to buying a car. They just said yes to 20, 30, 40, or even more, $50,000 vehicle. And so what happens in the dealership? The salesperson or product specialist says, okay, great, sign this buyer's order that you agree to these terms. And then they say, okay, wait here, we're going to have our F&I manager load everything, and then you'll go in and finalize it with him. So what's happening to me as the consumer, I turn to my wife and I go, okay, that guy's going to try and sell us stuff, or that gal's going to try and sell us stuff. We're going to say no to everything. And by the way, are you sure are we making the right decision even buying the car? Is this even the right thing? And so what happens is when I go into the F&I office, I have a fear of this F&I manager. I've already prepped myself that I'm going to say no to whatever he offers. And so he may give me the perfect gap explanation, and I'm still going to say no just because I'm scared and uncomfortable. We already know that a consumer that's been exposed to F&I product before they go into the F&I office will buy more F&I products. So we already know that. Let's translate that now to online checkout. As a consumer, I now look and go, okay, Extended service contract. Should I get that? I don't know. What do? I go to a third party. I go to Google. I do research. I see, should I get GAP? Should I get prepaid maintenance? I'll actually sell myself on the product way more often than that F&I manager who I'm afraid of will actually convince me to say yes. And the other really interesting point is that from a dealership perspective, what did we do for them? We actually exposed the customer to F&I product. We exposed the customer to F&I product. So now a well-trained dealership team, when I come in and say, hey, I'm ready to finalize my deal, they're gonna go, hey, Matt, we see that you got the extended service contract but didn't get the prepaid maintenance. I don't know if you realize this, Matt, but most of our customers get the extended service contract. It means they're keeping the car for a while. Most of them do get the prepaid maintenance because, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you will save X amount of dollars over that 4 or 5 year prepaid maintenance package. Is that something you want me to add back in? So they still have a second chance to sell them, but we've exposed the customer to the product. And that's why we're seeing a $500 to $700 lift in F&I profit with large dealer groups. I'm talking about publicly traded groups like Asbury. So yeah, there's definitely particular groups of consumers that find online checkout particularly attractive. Amongst them actually is women. You know, a lot of car dealers don't realize that women either make the decision or are involved in the decision for 85% of automotive purchases. That's a huge number. Women are also much more likely to actually leverage third-party websites. Why? Because they want to be armed before they go in. I hate to admit it, but men, we have a little bit of a macho streak in us, right? Like, we'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go in that dealer and I'll show him, you know? The women are like, okay, they're not going to respect me the way they should. They're not going to treat me the way they should. So I'm going to have all my ducks in a row. I'm going to be super prepared when I get in there. So what we're seeing is absolutely women find it really attractive because they don't have to deal with the attitude that they feel that they get at a dealership, right? The, hey, you know, and I know I'm getting a little bit cliche, but the, okay, as soon as your husband gets here, we can go for a test drive type of attitude. And so they love this because it absolutely happens, right? I mean, I have one of my clients, the Clay Cooley Automotive Group, Trent Cannon, was sharing with me that his fiance went to the two of them went to a dealership. It's really interesting because he works for a car dealership. She didn't want a brand that group owns. They went into a dealership. It was really interesting because he says, we walked out and like, I wasn't super thrilled with the experience, but it was just kind of average to me. He said, we walked out and my fiance turns to me and goes, that was an awful experience. And can you believe the way that guy treated me? And it had gone over Trent's head, but she walked away feeling like he had no respect for women. And so it's absolutely more attractive to women in particular for that reason. Yeah, I do believe that the auto industry is slower to adopt new technologies. And I think, look, I mean, in general, the human race is afraid of change. So this is not just a car dealership or automotive conversation, but we do seem to dig our heels in a little bit deeper in the automotive space. And I think it's because, you know, it's been such a profitable industry for such a long time that from a car dealership perspective, it's really a challenge. And frankly, I think sometimes OEMs contribute to this too, because OEMs will go into dealerships and say, hey, we need to think about the future. We need to change the way that we do business with customers. But at the same time, that same OEM is also looking at that dealership's numbers every single month. And allocation of new vehicles is tied to those numbers. So, you know, in some ways, the OEMs are talking out of both sides of their mouths. They're saying, hey, we need to treat the customer better. But at the same time, they're saying, hey, but we've got to hit our numbers this month. And then we see the same thing in dealership personnel. From a dealership personnel perspective, GSMs, sales managers, and salespeople, how are they compensated? They're compensated on gross profit. So it's really tough for you to go to a GSM or a GM or a desk manager and say, hey, you know what? Stop trying to make as much money as you can on every car deal. If we do the right thing and treat the customer better, then the money will come anyway. right? So they dig their heels in, and they continue to use the same processes because they are thinking about today, tomorrow, and this month. And they are not, I mean, it's March 23rd today. They are not thinking about April 1st through April 30th at all. This is between now and March 31st, and it's how much can we sell, how much profit can we make? And I would say to you guys, look at a CarMax as an alternate, right? Or look at a Carvana. But I mean, CarMax specifically, I find really interesting because I would never send a friend or loved one to CarMax, not because the experience isn't good, the experience is great, but they're gonna charge several $1,000s more for the same car that you could buy at a dealership. But look at their success. Why are they so successful even though they typically will charge more for the car? It's because of the experience, right? So as dealers, we need to start thinking about how would we want to be treated if we were buying a car. We need to, again, shift our focus to how do we make our website like Amazon? How do we make our showroom like Apple?